Welcome to our podcast. Stop translating and start speaking. You know, it's something I've noticed over and over again. People are so caught up in translating words and sentences from their language to English, they forget about the essence of communication. It's like they're trying to turn their thoughts into a code that doesn't always work the way they want it to. The reality is, when you're learning a language, especially English, it's not just about knowing words or understanding grammar rules. It's about using that language, stepping out of the mental maze of translation, and diving into the flow of natural speech. Every time you translate, you're pulling yourself back into your comfort zone. You're giving yourself permission to stay within the boundaries of your first language, never quite venturing into the world of true fluency. You think in your native tongue, translate it in your head, then speak in English. It's like trying to run a race while constantly looking over your shoulder. You'll never get ahead. It's exhausting, and you're not really connecting with the language the way you need to. The shift, though, happens when you stop translating. When you make the decision to start thinking directly in English, it's like stepping into a whole new world, a world where your thoughts and your words move in sync. Your brain starts to trust itself more, and you begin to feel the flow of the language, how sentences just come together naturally without that pause in between. It's freeing. It's exhilarating. It's the difference between speaking a language and owning it. Think about it. When you talk to someone in your first language, you don't stop every few words to translate in your head. You just speak. It flows. The same can happen when you speak in English. It's not about knowing every word in the dictionary. It's about knowing how to express yourself. It's about getting comfortable enough to speak without overthinking it. The goal isn't perfection. It's connection. When you begin to stop translating, you'll find your speech getting smoother, your sentences becoming more fluid. You'll start catching yourself thinking in English, having entire conversations in your head without a single translation. And that's when you know you've truly crossed over. That's when you're no longer stuck in the rut of constantly decoding and recoding everything. You're living in the language, you're thinking in it, and you're speaking it with confidence. The beauty of it all is that you don't need to be perfect. Fluency doesn't mean being flawless. Fluency means speaking naturally, confidently, and with purpose. It's about expressing yourself without fear, without hesitation. It's about learning how to use the words you know to paint pictures, to tell stories, to share your thoughts and ideas. That's what matters, not how many words you can memorize, or how well you can translate from one language to another. And let's not forget that the moment you stop translating, you start learning. You start absorbing the rhythm and the melody of the language. English, like any language, has its own music to it. When you stop translating, you begin to hear that music. You hear the rise and fall of sentences, the pauses, the emphasis. It's more than just words strung together. It's the sound of communication. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. So let me ask you, are you ready to stop translating? Are you ready to let go of the crutch and trust yourself to speak freely? Because here's what I know. When you do, you'll stop thinking of yourself as a person learning English. You'll become someone who speaks it, someone who lives it. And that's the real goal. You can do this. You've got what it takes. You just have to start speaking. No more translating. Just speak. Trust the process, trust yourself, and watch how your world opens up in ways you never imagined. You see, the moment you stop translating, something incredible happens. You stop being a spectator of the language and start becoming an active participant in it. When you're translating, you're on the sidelines, watching the game without ever playing. You're turning the language into a puzzle, constantly trying to fit the pieces together perfectly. But when you let go of translation, you step onto the field. You start playing with the language, creating sentences as if they're your own original thoughts. And that's where the magic begins. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. It might feel like you're stumbling, tripping over your words. But that's where growth happens, right in that discomfort. Think about it. No one ever became fluent by playing it safe. Fluency is earned by taking risks, by letting yourself make mistakes, and by having the courage to speak even when you don't feel ready. Because here's the thing. When you allow yourself to make mistakes, you actually speed up your learning. It's the failures that teach you more than any perfect sentence ever could. There's a certain beauty in the messiness of it all. When you let go of translation, your speech becomes more authentic. It becomes raw, real, and most importantly, it becomes you. You stop mimicking what you've heard or read, and start expressing yourself in your own voice, in your own way. Language isn't just a tool for communication. It's an extension of who you are. And when you stop translating, you tap into that power, allowing your thoughts, feelings, and ideas to flow naturally without the barriers of translation. Think of all the moments you've had where you didn't need to translate, moments where you just knew what to say. Maybe you've had them in your first language. Maybe you've experienced them in English as well. Those moments are priceless, because they come from a place of true understanding, not just memorization. They come from a place where language isn't something you're trying to figure out, but something you're living, breathing, and using to connect with the world around you. Now, imagine having those moments more often. Imagine walking into a room and being able to engage in conversation naturally, without that pause to translate. Imagine not just responding in English, but thinking, dreaming, and living in it. That's the level of fluency that you can reach once you stop translating. It becomes less about what you know, and more about what you feel, and how you express that feeling through the language. It's important to remember that fluency isn't a destination. It's a journey. The journey isn't about reaching some ideal level of speaking, where you never make a mistake. It's about moving forward, gaining confidence, and embracing the language with all its quirks, nuances, and imperfections. The journey is about enjoying the process of becoming more yourself in English, and the only way to do that is by speaking it, using it, living it, without the crutch of translation. The more you speak, the more you'll learn to think on your feet. You'll develop that instinctive understanding of the language. Instead of constantly thinking about how to say something, you'll simply know how to say it. You'll learn the subtle differences between words and phrases. Not because you've memorized them, but because you've used them enough times that they become second nature. Every time you speak without translating, you're reinforcing that instinct, strengthening your ability to think in English. It's like building muscle. At first it's tough, it's awkward, but over time it gets easier. You'll find yourself using more advanced vocabulary and more complex structures without even thinking about it. You'll stop analyzing the language and just let it flow. So the question is, are you ready to embrace the language fully? Are you ready to stop translating and start living in English? Because once you make that shift, once you let go of the safety net of translation, you'll start seeing the language in a whole new light. You'll realize that English is not just something you study, it's something you experience, something you own, something that becomes a part of who you are. And that's when fluency truly begins. As we come to the end of this journey, I want you to remember one important truth. Language is not a puzzle to solve. It's a bridge to connect. When you stop translating, you open yourself up to a world of endless possibilities. You stop living in the confines of translation and start living in the rhythm of the language itself. It's not about how many words you know or how perfect your sentences are. It's about how freely you can express your thoughts, how deeply you can connect with others, and how naturally you can live in the language. So take this moment to let go of translation. Trust yourself. Trust the process. Every word you speak, every sentence you form, is a step forward towards true fluency. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And with every conversation, every mistake, every breakthrough, you're getting closer to the English speaker you want to be. Imagine for a moment the freedom of speaking without hesitation, the kind of freedom that comes from knowing you're not bound by the weight of translation, but instead empowered by your own voice, your own thoughts flowing seamlessly in English. Think about how that feels, the liberation of being fully present in the conversation, not stumbling over words or searching for translations, but simply speaking and connecting. This isn't just about language. It's about owning your own voice. It's about stepping into a space where your words are a reflection of your mind, your creativity, your personality, without the barrier of translation. It's the ultimate form of self-expression. The more you immerse yourself, the more you'll realize that fluency isn't about knowing every word. It's about trusting yourself enough to speak with the words you already know. You already have everything inside you to be an amazing English speaker. The key is just letting it flow. Fluency is a dance. And like any dance, it takes practice, but it also takes rhythm. The more you step into the language, the more you feel the rhythm of it. You'll start to feel when a sentence needs to pause, when to raise your voice, when to bring your words closer together. It's a fluid motion, a dance between thought and expression. And every time you speak, you get better at it. You get more in tune with the language, and soon it becomes second nature. So let go of the need for perfection. Perfect doesn't exist in language. What matters is your ability to express yourself, to be understood, and to understand others. English, like any language, is alive, constantly changing and evolving. It's messy, it's beautiful, and it's full of possibility. Don't let the fear of making mistakes stop you. Mistakes are not failures, they're stepping stones. They're moments of growth, each one getting you closer to the fluent. confident speaker you're becoming? This is your journey. This is your language. Stop translating and start owning it. Think about the last time you had a conversation in English and felt truly connected to the words you were using. There was no hesitation, no inner dialogue translating in your mind, just a smooth flow of ideas being shared effortlessly. That moment wasn't a coincidence. That was the result of fully immersing yourself in the language, of allowing it to live within you, and of being brave enough to speak without holding back. Now, picture what life could be like if every conversation felt that way. Imagine walking into a room, meeting new people, and being able to express yourself fully in English without second-guessing every word, or fearing that you might make a mistake. What if you could look at the world around you and describe it? Share your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas, with the same ease and fluidity as you do in your native language? That's the power of thinking and speaking directly in English. The truth is, language isn't about words. It's about the connection those words create. Every sentence you speak is a thread that weaves you into the fabric of a conversation, a culture, and a community. When you stop translating, you stop living in a bubble of words and start living in a world where communication flows freely and naturally. It's not just about understanding the words. It's about understanding the meaning behind them, feeling the energy of the conversation, and being able to respond in real time, without a pause. Let me share a secret with you. The beauty of fluency is found in the small moments. It's not in the big, grand conversations, but in the tiny, everyday exchanges that make up our lives. The way we greet someone, the way we laugh, the way we make small talk with strangers, the way we express our opinions, share our experiences, or ask questions. These moments matter just as much, if not more, than the big speeches or presentations. It's in these little moments that you start to see the real power of language. It's when you're not thinking about the words, but instead focused on the person in front of you, on the shared experience, on the conversation itself. So, what if you started living more fully in English? What if you began to see the language not as a challenge, but as an opportunity to explore new perspectives, to connect with people in ways you never thought possible, to discover new cultures, ideas, and ways of thinking? English, like any language, is a door to endless possibilities. It's not just about speaking words. It's about opening doors to new experiences, new opportunities, and new ways of being. And here's the most exciting part. Every time you speak in English, you're not just improving your language skills. You're expanding your world. You're learning more about yourself, about the world around you, and about the connections you can make. The more you speak, the more you experience, and the more your world opens up. Each conversation becomes a stepping stone, and each word you speak brings you closer to the person you want to be, the speaker you want to become. So don't hold back. Let go of the fear, the hesitation, and the need for perfection. Speak your truth, express your ideas, and trust that the language will follow. Stop translating and start speaking, because the moment you do, you'll realize that you've been speaking English all along. You've just needed the courage to set it free. Thanks for your time. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. Also, feel free to share your thoughts or any questions you have in the comments below.